This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for taking the time to watch our council member orientation for Stars for Children of Marion County. This orientation today is going to take us through all the information that will help us become more familiar with the council and what the council is all about. So my name is Heather Wildrick Holman, and I am the coordinator and one of the co-chairs of Stars for Children, which is the Marion County Prevent Child Abuse Council. And what we're going to be going over today is just learning more about prevent child abuse, both nationally, at the state level and the local level. And our mission and focus is, of course, to prevent child abuse and neglect. And we are going to learn a little bit more about STARS in more detail by watching a really fantastic promo video that our other co-chair, Shawana Ray, has created for us. And then we're going to talk about what our Prevention Council does, some of its objectives and responsibilities to the state level, what we're working on, and all the various ways to get involved. You have a folder. There's a lot of materials inside your folder. So when you're looking at your left-hand pocket, you're going to see, you have a table of contents that goes through everything that's more or less in your folder. So when you start to begin to go through that left-hand pocket, behind that table of contents, you're going to see new council member checklist. I am going to need you to fill that out and return that back to me. It goes over some information about you. We do put that in a confidential binder that's kept in my office because one of the things that we do have to do for all council members is to do background checks on our individuals just to make sure that there are times where we work with the community and that we are around children, and we just have to make sure that we're taking those safety precautions. And then also, after you go through the council orientation today, there's some additional things you can check off to let us know in what ways and what capacities you want to get involved with the council. Behind that checklist sheet is a request for a Child Protection Services history check. If you fill out all the highlighted areas and if you read closely there, they do want it to be completed in all capital letters, and please use either black or blue ink. I'll have you to return that back to me as well. And then additionally, if your employer or your HR, or you've already had background checks done in the past, if you have anything that you could obtain and share copies of that with the council, that would be really greatly appreciated as well. But we can always talk about that on an individual basis after today's orientation. You have a copy of today's PowerPoint. I will share with you that the folks that participated in the May 9th orientation, your slides may slightly be different from the slides I'll be going through today, just simply because these had already been printed before I made some edits and minor changes to the PowerPoint. And then after that, more or less from left to right in the folder are just some supplemental handouts that go a lot more in depth about the things that we're going to be covering today. So we will get started. So what constitutes child abuse and neglect? What is it that we're essentially trying to prevent? Well, you have a really fantastic handout that was basically copied and pasted from Prevent Child Abuse of Indiana's website. To kind of really quickly tell you, they don't spend a whole lot of time explaining what that is. They feel like since they've been around since the 1980s, more or less the lay community, the average person knows what that is. But in my personal experience, I think it's still important for us to take the time to talk about what child abuse and neglect is, because I think that we all have different life experiences. We all have different backgrounds and knowledge bases. So I think it is important for us to review that. So of course, physical abuse, that's probably the most common that most of us are familiar with. So that would involve physical injury or allowing someone else to do that. It's unexplained welts or bruises, lumps, bumps, unexplained fractures. Sometimes we may notice cigarette burns. there's the really great thing about this handout that we have is it also allows you to see the emotional responses that might be exhibited in a child as well who's suffering from physical abuse. So they're sometimes suffer from depression, low self-esteem. They may appear frightened of their caregiver. We often see school absenteeism, and they have a heightened, like that hypervigilance that we sometimes see as well. Neglect is one I think that sometimes for individuals is harder to identify. And sometimes neglect too is not always this intentional, how do I say, like sometimes even the best loving parents can do instances of neglect. And I think it's important for us to kind of flesh that out. But neglect by definition is chronic failure to meet basic needs of a child for those things such as food, clothing, shelter, medical care, education, which is one that I think people sometimes don't think about, or supervision. And that can include some signs and symptoms you may notice are when a child or an infant has those a flat head or bald spots, or maybe being left in their crib and not picked up and cared for, or if they seem to have inappropriate clothing and it's very cold temperatures outside and they're not appropriately dressed for the weather that we're having. They might have some developmental lags. Also, they might be underweight. And then they may report that they are often left alone, or we find them begging for food, or they're chronically tired. And sometimes if they're not hitting those milestones and different things like that. Some behavioral indicators of a caretaker may include substance abuse, chaotic lifestyle, unfair, extreme expectations of their children. Sexual abuse is another one that we have to think about, and that's the utilization of a child for sexual gratification by an adult or other child in a position of power, or preventing another person to do so. So there are those obvious physical indicators that could be present for a child. Pregnancy under 16 years of age, venereal diseases, bruising or injuries to their genitals or their rectal area, if they have continual or recurrent urinary tract infections. But often it's behavioral indicators that we're going to see come up more so than the physical ones. Sleep disorders, taking frequent baths, self-inflicted injuries. They may act out the sexual behaviors that have been done to them. They may wet the bed. Sometimes we see misdiagnoses for a lot of these things, such as ADD or oppositional defiance disorder, things like that. So I really do highly recommend that folks go through this document a lot more in depth. Some other topics that are in here also include emotional maltreatment, which it's the chronic failure by a caretaker to provide support and affection to make sure that that child has a sound and healthy personality. So when they are emotionally neglected, they're hurt by what is not being given to them and what's not being provided. So they may have low self-esteem, eating disorders, difficulty forming positive relationships. They may have withdrawal, anxiety, fear. Emotional abuse is another aspect that we need to think about as well. Verbal threats of bodily harm, demeaning the child, putting them down, telling them they're stupid, they're no good, they're ugly, or that they hate them. And then medical neglect is another one. When minimal health care is not being obtained for the child, so an untreated cold or flu, they may need to have medicine, but the medicine's not provided to the child, or prescription's not filled. They don't take their children to the dentist. The whole notion of failure to thrive, which may be a term that some are familiar with. If that child's underweight, if they are not, they might often, that's why during well checks for little babies, they're often checking their weight and they're checking kind of their skull and things like that. You might notice a child's their face looking sunken in and things like that, they may have prominent or noticeable ribs, thin buttocks, wrinkled skin. So what we tell folks is that if you ever suspect a child is suffering from any of these things, it's really, really important to call the child abuse hotline. You have a brochure in your packet called When, What, and How to Report Child Abuse and Neglect. So you call that 1-800 number. You just let them know it is really important that we know that it's a prosecutable offense, that if we have knowledge of child abuse and neglect, that we fail to report that. And the hotline number is 1-800-800-5556. All right. Okay. So, and please, if anyone has any questions after watching the orientation video, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. So the When, What, and How to Report Child Abuse and Neglect, I'll kind of go back to that brochure real quick. I really like that brochure because it goes through some warning signs, and it also goes through what what the DCS worker will be asking you during that hotline call. It is a confidential call, and like I said, it is really, really important to kind of become more familiar with what child abuse and neglect is, and then and to be knowledgeable about the fact that we do need to report when we have suspicion or knowledge that child abuse is going on. But we actually don't spend a whole lot of time focusing on that. We focus on the more primary prevention side of things, and we're going to be talking a lot more about that in today's orientation meeting. So this is our organization chart, and you have a copy of this in your folder. We'd like to really kind of give folks the lay of the land of how Prevent Child Abuse really works. So we're going to go into more depth about Prevent Child Abuse America and Prevent Child Abuse Indiana, and of course Stars for Children in just a little bit. But we just want to kind of show you how this lays out. So Prevent Child Abuse America, they oversee all the state organizations across the country and offer support to them as well. And of course, we have all of our local state groups as well, organizations. And so our state organizations oversee all the local county groups. So Prevent Child Abuse Indiana works hard to support our efforts here locally, and they are also supporting all the efforts of all the other councils across the state. They do have a goal to get councils up and going in every county in our state. The last I heard, they were well over, I think there's well over half of the state, if not more, has an established chapter, which is really, or a council. So that's pretty exciting. So here in Marion County, we are Stars for Children. And so there are 2 co-chairs. And I need to update this slide. I don't think I'm showing I just realized I don't think I'm showing you all the most updated PowerPoint. But so Sarah Bailey was our former co-chair, and we are now, even though I'm recording, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to pull up the more recent PowerPoint. Yes, this is okay. This is looking more like what I want it to be. We just go with the flow here. So, okay. And here it is. Okay, organizational chart. So so I'm the coordinator, and I'm a paid coordinator. So with that, just to kind of make sure we're following the best practices of nonprofits and social service agencies, it is appropriate for me to have a co-chair. Because outside of myself, everyone that participates with Stars for Children does so in a voluntary, non-paid capacity. But we do think it's important that folks know that as part of my paid position with Children's Bureau, I am the paid coordinator of Stars for Children. And then we have an advisory board that in 2019 is meeting every other month. We have a secretary, and we have committee chairs, and we have various board members. And we are all, like I said, everyone involved is volunteers. And then we'll go into more details about this later, but it just kind of breaks down to show you a little bit more about the various things that we are doing in the community. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about Prevent Child Abuse of America. So Prevent Child Abuse America, you can check them out at preventchildabuse.org. They were founded in 1972. They do, like I said before, provide that support for our state chapters. They have a really fantastic blog. They provide those Prevent Child Abuse April toolkits that we use every year to kind of gear up for April awareness events. They do a lot of federal legislative work, so it kind of coincides when you think about the ways in which our various levels of prevent child abuse work. So it makes obviously most sense that they're kind of keeping an eye on the federal legislation that's happening as it affects families and children. And then they do have programs that are being implemented and utilized across the country. And we do here in Marion County actually have some of these programs. So Healthy Families is a program that I believe is a part of the Villages. It's an in-home case management program, and it's a fantastic program. So, and another program they have is called Circle of Parents. So Prevent Child Abuse Indiana, they're the state group, and you have some information in your folder about Prevent Child Abuse Indiana. So you have a fact sheet. So they were incorporated in October of 1977, so about 5 years after Prevent Child Abuse America got started. And in 2007, they merged with the Villages. And so the Villages is now Prevent Child Abuse Indiana as of 2007, their fiscal agent. And Prevent Child Abuse Indiana, like I said before, supports all of the various councils. They're located here in Indianapolis, which makes the relationship between us and them an interesting one that is not necessarily, how am I trying to say? Having them in our backyard, sometimes that was one of the reasons, and I'll talk more about it later, why we went with Stars for Children, to really differentiate ourselves from them. Because even though they're supporting the entire state, some of their work really happens locally as well. So we want to just be mindful and intentional with making sure folks know that we're Stars for Children, they're Prevent Child Abuse Indiana, because they're located at 38th and Meridian. And so all of our mission, our values, all of that, they do need to be aligned with Prevent Child Abuse Indiana. So their vision is to live in a state where children flourish free from abuse and neglect. Their mission is to be the voice in Indiana for preventing child abuse in all of its forms. And their core values are valuing children, strengthening families, engaging communities. And what they do is they do public awareness, provide information and resources, education, community building, and advocacy for the state of Indiana, and they support us to do those same things here at the local level. They provide a variety of trainings, which are all available for review at their website, but in your folder, you also have the education series brochure. So they provide a Child Abuse 101 training for the community, and all these trainings are free. They also have a program called Safe Tots, which we also locally provide to the community. They have another program called Nurturing Healthy Sexual Development. Then they have another program called Zeros to Threes, Preventing Child Abuse and Neglect, Parent-Provider Partnerships in Childcare. They also are a Stewards of Children facilitator, and will go all across Indiana to do that training. They have another training called I Never Meant, which is a short film that covers topics of child abuse, stress, peer pressure, and neglect. Bullying prevention is another topic that they provide, and then they do human trafficking programming as well. They also provide a lot of child safety literature, and we have most, if not all of those available at our that are available to us and that we table with and we pass out at our community outreach events. So those vary from gun safety in children to internet safety tips, stress management. I think that's a really popular one when I'm tabling. I notice that parents take a lot of those. The Home Alone one is a really popular one. Water safety and when, what, and how to report child abuse and neglect. So all those are definitely for your review. Please know that we have a lot of each of these. These can be printed off on Prevent Child Abuse's website in a PDF form, but we also have the nice glossy shiny ones available for our council members to pass out if ever wanted or needed. They also put on several programs throughout the year. So they have their annual council meeting, which is happening this June, where all of the council members come together and we check in, we share ideas, we share thoughts, we get some information from Prevent Child Abuse Indiana, and then they usually have a guest speaker and provide us with some training. They also have some things, regional meetings in the fall. And so the regional meetings, so they have the annual council meeting where everyone comes together in the summer. And in the fall, they have regional meetings where they'll come around to 2 or 3 places across the state and invite the folks in that general area to come and once again have a check-in with the council members, provide some council training, and then there's usually a guest speaker as well. They do ongoing webinars for our councils. They do state legislative work, so much like the federal or the Prevent Child Abuse of America. They're focusing on what's happening at the state level. So they've been crucial at getting really important bills passed here. We just wrapped up a recent legislative session, and I'm not sure what legislation they were checking out this year, but last year, for example, you may have known that as of July 1st, K through 12 are having to implement child abuse kind of prevention trainings for the students. And so a lot of the schools were scrambling to make sure that they're abiding by these new laws as they go into effect. They also do Kids Trust Fund and really promote that fund. That fund is a fundraiser through license plates and just ongoing donations to support prevention programs. And then 1-800-CHILDREN hotline, that is a hotline that can be used all across the United States. But here locally, it forwards folks to 211, Connect to Help, which connects folks to various resources. So what is Stars for Children? We're about to find out. So here in a moment, I'm going to get, let me see here, our video playing that was created by Shawana Ray. Let's see here. So now you should be able to see the video. It says, what is Stars for Children? And let me move this. And Danielle, can you confirm for me that you can see the Stars for Children video?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, I will go ahead and play that. And then once I play it, will you confirm for me that you can hear the sound?
Yes.
Okay. STAR stands for Supporting
I can
Families,
hear it.
Action, Addressing Issues, Recognizing Challenges, and Strengthening Our Community. So, Heather Wilder Coleman, I am one of the co-chairs for Stars for Children. I help coordinate the monthly meetings. So we learned that there had been a Prevent Child Abuse Marion County Council, but it went away around 2012. And when we found that out, we felt like we really have a need for a Prevent Child Abuse Council, especially since it's a grassroots group of like-minded individuals that come together to say, let's have happy, healthy kids in our community.
My name is Shawana Ray, and I am a singer, songwriter, and a philanthropist. I got involved with Stars for Children. One day I had done a radio interview and just so happened to accidentally walk into the Children's Bureau, and I met Heather and shared my song that I had just released that year, which was called Who Will Cry for the Little Girl. She instantaneously thought that I would be great to sit on the council for Prevent Child Abuse Marion County.
My name is Jasmine Drake. I'm here on behalf of Marion County Commission on Youth, and I'm very new to the nonprofit world, so I think I can kind of bring that angle to this, being an outsider and coming in. I feel like I can bring some new ideas.
Camille Anderson. Stars for Children, it actually stands for, the S is for supporting families, the T is for taking action, the A is for addressing issues, R is recognizing challenges, and S is strengthening communities.
and that when you just look at the terminology, prevent child abuse, that might be a turnoff, or people might not really understand what we're all about. So we had a contest in 2016 to rename our council, but the one that won was Stars for Children. We really think that it speaks to what we're all about and what we are striving to achieve for the children and families of Marion County.
My name is Consuelo Gass. Collaborate together to make some things happen in the city.
So Stars for Children, we were officially chartered last May, or late April, early May of 2016. And since then, we have hit the ground running with playing different social events. And
Well, I currently work with youth right now as a youth and family therapist, and kids are my passion, and ensuring their safety and encouraging them to strive for a better life is always something I've always enjoyed.
And then also, you know, teaching them how to build into this sense of trust and build into this sense of self-respect and how to respect others, as well as, you know, not being able to allow their power to be taken away by anyone, friendship or relationship. So to me, it's education and modeling as well as what these things have shared.
So we began those efforts in the fall of 2015. And we hosted a few community forums across town on different sides of Marion County. And then we brought everyone together to say, hey, let's start up a Prevent Child Abuse Marion County Council again. So we started that up, and we got a great turnout of a lot of interested community members. And from there, we started thinking about how we really want the message to be a positive one.
For me, Stars for Children means bringing awareness to the community on ways to prevent child abuse. We try to do a lot of community outreach to educate our community, because we believe through education is a way that we can prevent child abuse.
And I came in not really knowing what it was I was going to get myself involved with. I didn't know what it was that I was going to be doing. I didn't know what they could utilize me for. However, I did know that it was something that I was interested in, and I wanted to get to know a little bit more about the council.
Just to know that you're going to impact a child in some way or family is probably the most rewarding.
I have obviously a wide gap in my children. So I have 16, high school, talking about college, relationship stuff. And then I also have my 4-year-old who comes home every week and she's marrying somebody new, right? Because kindergarten and preschool, this is what we do, get married to everybody. And so I've had to kind of adapt my conversations, but it's always the same. And it's always, you know, you need to be nice. And they need to be nice back.
A victim of dating violence. When I was in high school, I dated 3 guys that were the worst. I had very low self-esteem. I'm originally from Liberia. I had very low self-esteem. I hardly spoke English, and I was dating this older guy who I thought was amazing. And he would put me down, all the secrets that I told him about my family coming to America, about being immigrants. He would put me down about that. He would say, you know, you're illegal. He would just make fun of me. And I thought I had to stay because that was love.
Teen Dating Violence Awareness event this past February. And we had, in that event, we had both interactive activities for the parents and youth. We had a really fantastic parent speaker panel with experts in the field to teach parents how to talk to their young, their children about those important topics.
I know it's a hard time to start dating. There's one of the boys who want to try to approach her, and I just want to make sure she makes the right decision. As a parent, you want to make sure that anything that you do is a positive influence for your child. So any resources that's out there that's available to you, I want to provide them.
They have grown so much. I have learned so much about child safety with their initiative of Safe Tots and their Stewards for Children training. I have since volunteered to be a part of those initiatives and going into different places and teaching those same trainings.
So we are able to provide that training in the community. We also go into our local jails and educate the inmates there. We're always looking at ways to partner, collaborate, and participate in a variety of community events, to table at those events and pass out important safety literature. So whether it's a back to school event or a community event where just individuals in the community are coming together, we try to make sure that we're there to put out that important information.
So it's good to do the scenarios with the kids and let them make the decisions and see if they make decisions that reflect what we want them to do, even when we're not with them. So it's good to see and hear them answer questions and make decisions based on dating, violence, and been situations that they can possibly see themselves in one day and know that they see the warning signs and know what to do and where to go to get help.
The Stars for Children is very new. We're still up and coming, and so we're very willing to get many people from different angles and different walks of life to come and to bring their thoughts and their ideas to the committee.
So if they see that you're unable to trust your friends or your husband or what have you, then they're your many needs. So they're going to model that behavior in many ways.
Now, I want to ask you a question. Remember when you first got here and you were kind of hesitant on being here? Do you feel better now about being here?
I believe that we strive to impact families as well as children to have healthier families and ensure their safety and well-being and help them learn and establish healthy boundaries and safe relationships.
We basically are in the community to spread the awareness about child safety topics. So we want to make sure every person, whether you're the barber or you're the clerk at CVS or you're the librarian, we want to make sure that anyone who has children, cares for children, are knowledgeable about child safety topics, whether that's stress management for adults, whether that's water safety, whether that's how well you know your partner, or how to deal with a baby's crying.
We are able to bring awareness to the issues that are affecting our community and in turn prevent child abuse.
And so that's really what the council is all about, and that's really what we strive to do, to make sure that every single individual has the opportunity to get involved in making sure that we here in Marion County have a safe place for
Uh-oh.
our children.
I have volunteered now with the jail system to go in and teach Safe Tots. And now I am their communications specialist. So I am able to share everything that Stars for Children has to offer. And I'm just super excited to be able to share what we do for Stars for Children.
Everybody's very fun and family oriented. We all have so many different ideas to bring. So it's a lot of fun for me.
I'm super excited to invite you to participate in Stars for Children, whether it's just volunteering for a specific event or if it's being on the council. We need people who care about our children.
I would like people to know that we are still looking for dedicated council members and volunteers. If you have a passion for preventing child abuse, then we need you to be on our team. We need the community involvement to spread the word.
If you don't know what Stars for Children is, I hope that this video has given you a little insight as to what we are, what we're about, and what it is that you can do for us. Even if you want to donate your time, donate your money, or donate your gifts, we are welcome to having you, and we're open to hearing from you.
I think that it's important that we have a group like Stars for Children in Marion County, because we all can really play a part in making sure that we can stand up for children and make sure that we put children first. You do not need to be a social worker. You do not need to be a therapist, a teacher to really stand up and say, we want a safe place for children. We can be those empowered individuals in our community to say that all the children in our community, we care about them, we want them safe, we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can. And I think that getting involved with Stars for Children is a great way to make that happen. So we are looking for you. We want you to get involved with us, so please consider checking us out and seeing how you can make a difference for the children and the families of Marion County.
Just check us out on our Facebook page, Stars for Children. Again, we have so many community events. If you look at our Facebook page, we're always posting about our events that are coming up, and we also have a lot of good prevention material on there.
Okay. All right. So that was our Stars for Children video. I'm going to now flip back to the, all right. So you should now be seeing the PowerPoint again. Is that what you see, Danielle?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And I apologize, folks, that at times it was kind of stopping or kind of hiccuping there. So if you would want to watch it again, or if anybody wants even to be able to share it, we do have a Stars for Children channel on YouTube. We don't have a whole lot there, but what we do hope is that both that video that we just showed and then now this orientation video will be there, and that we'll be adding more things to that in the future. But there is a link there on the slide that if anybody does want to go and rewatch that. But it sounded like the audio worked just fine. It was just that the video part was kind of lagging at times. Okay, so that was really informational. I think Shawana Ray did a fantastic job with that video, kind of highlighting all the various things that we do, and also had some great highlights from a special event that we put on for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, and we had partnered with Domestic Violence Network's teen youth group. But our local prevention council, we call ourselves Stars for Children. As I'm repeating what we said in the video there, but we're Prevent Child Abuse Indiana of Marion County, and that just didn't roll off the tongue. As I stated earlier, we already have Prevent Child Abuse of Indiana here in Indianapolis, so there was that to consider. And at one of the annual council meetings, talking with other councils around the state, some of them had reported that they had a lot more success with not calling themselves Prevent Child Abuse. So we had a contest, and Stars for Children, it did that name won, and we're pretty happy with our name. So some of the topics we're going to now talk about is what does a prevention council do, expectations of a chartered council, what is primary prevention versus just talking about child abuse and neglect, practical ways to prevent child abuse and neglect, some prevention talking points, and the meaning of the pinwheel. Once again, I will say that you've got corresponding things to what we're going to be talking about in your folder. So really quickly, you do have Stars for Children brochure. So we have created a brochure that talks about Stars for Children, and we do hand these out when we table and things like that. And so the mission of our group is to help the community at large gain a better understanding of how to help children get their needs met and develop appropriately and strengthen the capacity of prevention efforts being done in our community. I think that's also why it's so great to have so many various social service representatives on the council, because it's great for us to think about how we can not reinvent the wheel, but to really promote and signal boost all the amazing efforts that are already being done. So it's in the brochure talks about our Facebook page, our Twitter account. We need to update it and add our Instagram account too. And it talks about all the various ways that folks can get involved. So we do have our flyer. So roles of a prevention council, they are volunteer based and they're local and grassroots. I really like the fact that we're grassroots, because when you think about how you can make the most impact, and when I think about any kind of historically any social movement, it's really the folks on the ground that get the most done and kind of that can raise their voice. We can't really ever just sit around and wait for someone else to pass a law. So many of our systems are so reactionary, right? So whether that's law enforcement or our government or whomever, they're so reactionary, they're slow, and they don't always have, in my opinion, all community members' best interest at heart. So we're grassroots. So we want folks from, we have a large metropolitan area, but we want folks from all across Marion County to get involved with us. And we do say that you do not have to have a social worker background. And really, those folks are the ones we really do want to get involved with us, so they can tell a neighbor, a friend, a relative about all the important child safety and prevention things that are exist. And we are very primary prevention focused. When you think about a lot of the social service providers, they are providing direct service to clients. They have caseloads, they have all those various aspects where they provide some type of direct service. We do not provide direct service. We are primary prevention focused. So we're spreading that message of awareness far and wide, and we do not have any quote unquote direct clients that we serve, because we really have that more umbrella kind of mentality or model where we want all to be educating all of our community. And there is an aspect that we don't do a whole lot at this point, but I think there's always opportunities to where we can advocate for, if Prevent Child Abuse Indiana is saying, hey, this is some really awesome legislation that we're working on getting passed at the State House, or hey, this is legislation that is not good for families. We of course we don't want to get into that aspect of lobbying. There is important distinctions between advocating for good legislation and doing the lobbying type things. And we can always look at inviting Prevent Child Abuse Indiana in to one of our meetings to talk more about that if this is something we would ever want to pursue. But some of the things that groups do on a grassroots level to advocate for issues and causes is they encourage community members to reach out to their legislators. They put letters to the editor out and put press releases out about various issues going on in the community. And we can talk to the media. We have had Shawana Ray and Liz, two of our council members, they went to a really great McCoy event not too long ago to find out how we can talk more to our media, because that's something we definitely want to pursue. So those are some of the things that we as a council can do. Expectations of a prevention council. We have to make sure our position and our mission is in a total alignment with Prevent Child Abuse Indiana. And we need to make sure we're communicating with them on an ongoing basis. And the expectation is that we conduct 4 council meetings a year. That was why last year we looked at having quarterly meetings, but we all felt like we weren't meeting enough and too much was kind of happening in between those meetings. And then there's a variety of activities that that councils are supposed to do. One is that councils are supposed to host an April event. We're supposed to do at least 1 prevention education presentation per year, which we knock that out of the ballpark with our Safe Tots. Send representatives to the retreats and conferences that Prevent Child Abuse Indiana puts on. That we need to make sure that we're using congruent logos and messaging. And then every year we have to maintain our charter, which that's filling out paperwork that Prevent Child Abuse Indiana asks for us every December, and also paying the chartering fee, which is usually approximately about $150 annually. Then councils have the option to maintain nonprofit status, which if you've never done that, could be quite a chore, or have a fiscal agent. So our current situation is that Children's Bureau is the fiscal agent of Stars for Children. We are not a standalone 501c3. It is set up though in such a way that if anyone wants to ever get involved with Stars for Children and said, gosh darn it, I want to take Stars for Children and make it its own standalone nonprofit, we have the capacity to do that. We have the ability to do it. We want to make sure folks know that. But because there is a lot to that with filing 990 tax forms and articles of incorporation. There's just so many things that are involved with being a nonprofit that it does make at least sense for now for us to be a fiscal or have a fiscal agent, which is, like I said, Children's Bureau. And then maintain background checks on council members and volunteers. And I have that, some asterisks by that, because I just want to reiterate to folks that we do ask for that. So if you can get copies of that you've already had done, great. If you need two of them, I'm having like a little brain hiccup here. The CPS check one is free, and I can go on the sex offender registry, and that one is also free. But the limited background check, there is a charge to that. I think it's anywhere. When I had one done, I think it cost me $15. It could cost you more, but we tell folks that we don't want that to be a hindrance. So definitely reach out to me if you don't have a copy of a recent background check from an employer, or if you do not have if you have some barriers to being able to purchase a background check. All right, so what is primary prevention? Because that's what our council is all about. We really that primary prevention sphere. We're not secondary prevention, which that is, like I said, that's really direct service. That's programs and activities that are directed at specific individuals and groups. And then there's another level, tertiary, which are kind of that after the fact. So when we think about victim services or things like that, that those programs will have a focus on populations that have already experienced abuse to help prevent future abuse. But we really live and breathe in that primary prevention kind of arena. And those are programs and activities that are provided to the general public rather to any specific group. We focus on protective factors, and you have a sheet that talks about the 5 protective factors in your folder, which includes social and emotional competence, knowledge of parenting and child development, resilience, supports, and social connections. So we focus on ways in which we can kind of signal boost those and create opportunities for those to happen in our community. And it helps us to change our thinking from the assumption that child abuse is the problem that we are addressing to child abuse is a symptom of other overarching societal problems. So when we're kind of dealing with these other societal problems, we can also we'll see a reduction of child abuse and neglect, because it's almost like this messy interwoven web of things that are going on. None of this stuff really lives and breathes in a vacuum. It's all very, very interconnected. So if I'm saying all that to say, sometimes we have to kind of think outside the box and get really creative in thinking about the ways in which we can put on programs and participate in various community events, and know that we still are kind of really still working towards our goal of preventing child abuse and neglect. So that's the protective factors there. So there's a lot of prevention-based programs that do focus on the protective factors. I like that so much more than risk factors, because it definitely keeps us in that positive mindset, and it really doesn't come at our community, supporting our community from such a deficits model, that we can really support and uplift these protective factors when we see them going on in our community. And that, of course, all goes back to the ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences. If you're not familiar with the ACEs study, I highly recommend that you watch a TED Talk about it, or you get the opportunity to maybe go through another webinar training, or just kind of read up on the ACEs study. It's very eye-opening and really kind of paints that more broad stroke picture of the things that we're trying to reduce and prevent. So these are just some different ways of thinking about preventing child abuse. So this is the socio-ecological model. I know that's kind of a technical term, but it's what public health models use, and it's what the Center for Disease Control really, that's how the lens they kind of look at preventing prevention through. And so they look at it through different levels. So there's the individual level that we can be thinking about prevention, and that's really those relationships. In like helping people to build those skills, right? To have those nurturing relationships. The relational level is supporting parents and caregivers to have those positive relationships with children. And then the community level is making sure folks have access to programs, promote high quality childcare, promote health department services. So it's really thinking about, you know, the community. And then societal is promoting laws and policies that support our safe neighborhoods. So that's really kind of when I think about like the advocacy part that we can maybe strengthen and do more around. That really falls in that kind of circle or that ring on this prevention model here, that when you kind of think of it from a public health perspective. And then there's another way, yet again, to look at it. I like to kind of just show different ways because something might resonate with someone versus something else. And so I like this way of looking at prevention too. This is called the spectrum of prevention, kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you will, but just the different kind of like rungs of that ladder. And there's so many different ways that we can think about as a council that we want to make a difference in our community. And so from year to year, we might focus on one of these different levels, or and from event to event, or there might just be different kind of skill sets of our various council members that bring to the table that allow us to kind of work towards these different kind of rings of the ladder, if you will, with the spectrum of prevention. So once again, so I think about Safe Tots. We're getting out in the community and we're promoting that community education, but that also is strengthening individuals that attend Safe Tots to have that knowledge and skills on how to really have child safety knowledge and know-how for newborns up to age 5. And then educating providers. We don't really do a whole lot of that, but providers sometimes attend our Safe Tot trainings. And we have had providers and community members attend our teen dating and violence event, our child mental health event. I do think we have a really great ability to kind of network. We do a little of that during our meetings, and then we make sure to have representatives at various community meetings as well. And the 2 top ones, like I said, those are things that I think we could always work on, but those are ways in which we can see prevention happening as well. Those are sometimes some of the most time consuming and hard to have happen too, I think. So primary prevention activities, you have a handout in your folder that's called Prevention Councils, a Grassroots Strategy. And it really talks about examples of prevention activities. And so I fleshed some of those out here on this slide. So public awareness and education efforts. So we can do exhibits. Some examples of what other councils have done is sit-ins, pinwheel gardens. We do those for sure. I can't remember what the lifesavers are for, but that's just an example of what other groups have done. Prevention education programs. So we definitely do Safe Tots. We were able to get trained on Safe Tots to have Stars for Children members do that for the community. But we also can always bring any of those other programs that Prevent Child Abuse Indiana does to our community, and to have Prevent Child Abuse Indiana facilitate those. I myself, wearing my Children's Bureau hat, am an authorized facilitator of Stewards of Children. So we can all also always signal boost those efforts and make sure to kind of spread the word about that important training too. And think about creative ways that we can package those various trainings with other bigger, broader prevention initiatives. Public policy efforts, kind of talked a little bit about that. Violence prevention education programs. One of the things we did was that teen dating violence awareness event. I'll talk more about that later, but that was something we really had a lot of success with. Life skills in schools, so some of the councils do that. See, this is all about kind of, prevention is a hard sell. We're kind of going on a brief tangent here, because we're educating and we're building that awareness and we're doing that skill building to hope that this never happens. But so if it never happens, there's nothing on that other side to measure we hope to see rates of abuse and neglect go down. So in some ways we can kind of measure it that way, but sometimes you actually initially see an uptick on those things, because as more people have the awareness and knowledge of what it is and what it looks like, we will see reports go up, because it's not behind closed doors so much anymore. So there's an ebb and flow that takes place. But sometimes prevention is a hard sell, because we're almost selling a hope. We're almost selling this hope and belief that if we, when folks know better, they do better, right? So, so those are kind of some of the things that we work on. Speakers Bureau is one that we've kind of looked at because we have such a wide breadth of really great folks involved with STARS, at creating a Speakers Bureau of saying, hey, who is out here and what kind of educational prevention initiatives are they doing, and can we kind of compile a list of that and create a Speakers Bureau to where if someone is saying, hey, I really need someone to come and do a presentation or talk on cyberbullying, we could say, oh, we know just the person. Or if someone says, I need something on health and nutrition, oh, okay, well, we'll refer you to Purdue Extension. So it would be really great to kind of look at possibly creating that or finding out if something like that already exists. And I think that would also help us to figure out where the gaps are in the community. So yeah, and then we can also always be signal boosting and promoting all those wonderful best practice programs such as First Steps, Healthy Families, NACS, all those various parent nurse-family partnership, things like that. So you also have next in your folder, practical ways to prevent child abuse and neglect. So we really want to provide you with concrete examples on how to prevent it, because it's prevention sometimes is not so like, oh, cut and dry, oh, this is what this looks like and this is what we should do. So we already kind of talked about some of this, but talking to friends and family is a great one. Just any moment that you get. So I'll tell folks all the time, I'm not the people's favorite person just sit next to like at a gathering, because I'll get on my soapbox about child sexual abuse prevention, because that's a large part of what I do in my 9 to 5. But I feel like there's always an opportunity to be spreading the word about that and about these various topics. So we want to make sure that we're just, also some of the parenting knowledge is constantly changing. So as new information comes out about safe sleep or car seat safety and things like that, we can be signal boosting those things. And, I think it's so important that folks know that babies don't come home with an instruction manual. And so really empowering and supporting new parents and families. And just, spreading the word about all those various child safety topics. We are very open to, and we totally know and do not want to take for granted how creative the folks and how really intelligent and brilliant and just all the great ideas that our council members have. So if you ever have an idea that we should consider, bring it to me, bring it to the council meetings, and let's flesh that out and talk about it and see how we can make that happen. That is how we've gotten several of our events that we do up and going, because we really do know that we've got a lot of really creative folks in our group and who have probably really brilliant, amazing ideas that we haven't even unpacked yet. Talking abuse prevention, child abuse prevention talking points. So someone may say, well, okay, Heather, you want me to talk to my neighbor, my friend, whoever about this. How am I supposed to do that? What am I supposed to say? This is somewhat kind of new to me. So I think sometimes the best way to practice it is to talk to someone who's kind of safe. So that friend, that family member, I'll talk to you about it. That's fine. But kind of practicing, I think the more we practice, the more it can becomes just part of our everyday knowledge, and kind of just feels really natural to us when we start to talk about it more and more with family members in our community and our friends and all those folks. So you have a talking point handout that I encourage you to review. And these are just really great tips of things to think about that you could be talking about. So setting good examples and mirroring expected behaviors to children. I'm kind of an empowered bystander, and so I'll share an example with you. So I was with a friend last fall. We were like at a fall festival pumpkin patch carnival thing. and her son was 2, and he was having kind of a difficult moment, having some real big feelings at this zip line activity we were at. And I kind of began to see my friend, his mother, get really frustrated and overwhelmed by the tantrum that she knew was like just on the verge of coming, and it was beginning to start. And so in that moment, I just said, hey, so I was doing some role modeling for my friend. I said, hey, Jax, look over there. Look at those slides. Don't those look super cool? And in a minute, he just stopped that tantrum. His smile lit up, and he was excited to move on to the next thing. And so that's just an example I like to offer up, that as we know positive parenting skills and positive ways to interact with children, one of the great ways that we can really promote prevention is just to role model that and just share and talk about that anytime we can. Another example I had was when I was at the CCDF office a few weeks ago, and that was a long day for those families signing up for those services. And there was a mom there with a little girl who was also 2, and she was just, you could tell she was over it, mommy and daughter. And so I just kind of began to play with daughter in the hallway there while they were waiting, and talked to her, and I held her hand, and we kind of walked up and down the hallway. And so, yeah, so also realizing and knowing that it does take a village. Parenting is hard, raising kids are hard, and any way we can kind of do even those little moments, those little things, it does have a huge impact. So I probably should have put this earlier in the slide, but what does STAR stand for? It's supporting families, taking action, addressing issues, recognizing challenges, and strengthening community. Now, I do not expect anybody to remember that because that's a mouthful. But what we do is we have that listed and spelled out in the brochure. So if you're ever tabling for us, I always encourage folks to keep maybe that brochure handy, maybe with you, and so you can kind of glance down at that and remember that if anyone ever asks you what STAR stands for. I actually have it printed out really, really big hanging in my office, so I can kind of just glance at that throughout the day and kind of remind myself what STAR stands for. But yeah, so that, I think that all those various letters of the word STARS is really spelling out what we're all about. So let me just skip. Okay, so I'm going to pause real quick. Volunteer roles at STARS. I'm going to pause and look at your next sheet in your folder, which is the meaning of the pinwheel. This is a handout from Prevent Child Abuse Indiana, and it's just really important that we focus on that primary prevention and we stay very positive with our messaging, as I was speaking about earlier. So the pinwheel is never supposed to be used to represent deaths or reported cases of child abuse or anything negative. The pinwheel is solely supposed to represent happy, carefree childhoods that we want for every child. We want really positive messaging here. They kind of moved away from the ribbon, the blue ribbon, I would say, I don't even know, maybe like 5 years ago. There's lots of ribbons, of course, for like every cause, but Prevent Child Abuse really felt like we're going to move to the pinwheel. The pinwheel more accurately represents what we're all about. It also really signifies and has a more specific like image that we associate with Prevent Child Abuse. So that is why we use the pinwheel, and also we just want to make sure and that we understand and know that it's never to be used about those deaths and those cases of child abuse. And also, I think I mentioned this in April, they were asking folks to stop doing all the candlelight vigils. Those were kind of a long-standing event that a lot of communities host during the month of April, and we really are trying to get away from those. STARS has never done a candlelight vigil. Maybe when Marion County had a council years ago, they did that, but we don't do that. So yeah, everything we do is supposed to be positive in nature. So going back to the slideshow, volunteer roles at STARS. So there's lots of different ways to get involved with us. If you're already starting to think, wow, how should I get involved? So you can be a council advisory board member, and you have in your packet, you have prevention council roles and responsibilities that really spell all this out. Community events, you can volunteer and help us out with those. There are so many, and we pass out child abuse literature. So So I didn't realize, I was going over all that slide and I was going into detail, but we have individual slides for each one of these. So advisory board. Advisory board is probably the biggest commitment. So it consists of our coordinators, our officers, which is more or less just the secretary, and coordinators are also officers. Those are 2-year terms. We have board members, anywhere between 8 to 12 board members, and those are 2-year terms. We meet every other month. We set goals for the council, and we talk about what we want to do and kind of check in and all those different things. Anyone who wants to can attend a STARS meeting. You do not have to officially be an advisory board member. There's also various committees and projects that we're working on that folks can help us out with. So April is a big one, and so every year we have a big April awareness, and we have partnered with Early Learning Indiana. We have partnered with YMCA and various other preschools to do pinwheel gardens. We've had special events. We have a food desert committee, communications committee, and all these various things. And I think there are also, yes, various slides for these. So this year we did a Wear Blue Day. We had a big social media campaign, Pinwheels for Prevention, and that's planting those pinwheel gardens across the community. And we've partnered with a lot of, with Head Start, Child Care Answers, and YMCA in the past. So we can always look at partnering with a new group in the future years, or we can continue with our established relationships with other groups. So yeah, so those are some exciting things. I was really excited about how well our Wear Blue Day turned out. We had a lot of great participation from our council members. So thank you all for who participated in that. So this is just some examples of the social media campaign. Now, we use the social media campaign packet that was provided to us by Prevent Child Abuse Indiana, who got the packet from Prevent Child Abuse America. So these images with various logoing were shared all across the country this year on Twitter, on billboards, on Facebook, Instagram, etc. And I just thought that the messaging was really cute, and these images were really just really impactful too. Special events. So we want to kind of go over some examples of what we've done in the past with our special events. So in 2017, which you saw clips of in the YouTube video, we did a teen violence awareness symposium, which was fantastic. They did kind of a walk in their shoes activity with their parents, the teens and their parents, that was facilitated by DVN, Domestic Violence Network. And then that was part one. And then we also fed lunch. And then part two was adults, parents went up into a room and listened to a speaker panel, which included some folks from Julian Center, the prosecutor's office, some other knowledgeable experts and like therapists and things like that. And then the teens stayed downstairs and were led by some of their peers who are leaders in the DVN Youth Council. And they worked through some activities to talk about teen dating violence. We wanted to cultivate that safe space for them to talk without their parents present, with their knowledgeable peers about kind of what's going on in their lives around teen dating violence. And we have pretty high rates in Indiana for both teen dating violence, teen sexual abuse, and just sexual abuse overall for minors. So our kiddos are definitely in crisis, and these are some important topics that we want to make sure we talk about. And February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, so we hosted that in February. Last year, our special event was a child mental health event. So it was Myth versus Reality, Mending the Minds of Children and Families. And it was at Faye Bacard Glick Neighborhood Center. We had like almost 40 people registered, but it was a super nice day that day, and our turnout was not as high. But what we did do, which I thought was fantastic, and I want to see us do more of, is that we went live on our Facebook page, and we have, so now we have of our awesome guest speakers, and we had a really great vendor/resource tabling there, and so it was a really great event, and we recorded some of the things that they talked about, so that could be shared far and wide, even with folks that weren't able to attend on that day. So those are some examples of events that we've put on. We can always look at putting on different events. We've talked about possibly just, having these events reoccur in the future, because we have gotten interest from other groups who have wanted us to put these events on. So that's something for us to think about. We're still relatively new, and so we're kind of still finding out like what exactly is it that we want to do, because it does take a lot of work to put on like brand new events like these, but once you have them in place, it's so much easier to replicate it and do it again in the future. The Food Desert Initiative is something else that we're working on. So the Community Food Box Project, you have that brochure in your folder. And this is a really fantastic project that was started up by a college student trying to address our food desert issue in Marion County, especially in light of the Marsh grocery stores and all the various local groceries being closed down. We're kind of having a community crisis go on. And so while it's not a foolproof fix, she has taken old Nuvo newspaper boxes, and they're painted by Pendleton inmates, and those are distributed all across the community, and they're filled with non-perishable food items. And as you can see in the photo, we also put the brochures in there, and there's also additional literature that's put in the box that someone can take in case the box is empty. They have information about how to call 211 or contact the Food Box Initiative to find out about local food banks and other ways to get food and resources. So this is a great initiative that we are a part of. In the past, it hasn't totally got up off the ground, but we've discussed hosting food drives to fill some of these food boxes. We've looked at also expanding this to say, okay, we want to support and continue to signal boost the Community Food Box Project, but what are some other ways? So we're reaching out to Flanner Community Center, the Flanner House, who is doing a lot of really awesome work, and we're just trying to think of ways that we can signal boost and support the efforts that are going on around community food box, food deserts issue that's going on. Communication, so that's another thing that we need help and support with. Shawana Ray is our communications committee chair. We have a Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram account, and those are on your info to know sheet in your folder. We also have a newsletter that goes out, so we're always looking for submissions for our newsletter, and so if you have anything that you think would be great to share on any of those accounts or in a newsletter or something like that, definitely let us know. Safe Tots is another way to get involved with us. You can become trained on Safe Tots, which is a child safety presentation. It's about an hour long, and it covers a variety of child safety topics such as safe sleep, water safety, firearm safety, safe haven law, abusive head trauma, shaken baby syndrome. And that can be taught to anyone 8th grade and up. And so we go into the jails, we do parenting and pregnant teen programs. We go in and do it in the family consumer science classes. We've even done it at local health centers with pregnant clients or patients. So so if anybody wants to help us do that, let us know. It's kind of a long, drawn-out process to become a trainer, but once you are, we can have you help us with those efforts. Another opportunity is the Safe Sleep Community Action Team. So that is actually with IU Health and the Marion County Health Department, but they have a Healthy Babies Fetal Infant Mortality Review Team. So looking at what's causing our babies and our babies to pass away. And so they do interventions to improve services and resources. And so one of the primary initiatives they focus on is safe sleep. And so they are creating safe sleep ambassadors. It's also very grassroots in the sense that they are training folks through cribs for kids to become knowledgeable about safe sleep, and helping us to train folks across the lifespan and far and wide across our community about sleep, the importance of safe sleep. Community outreach is another way to help us. There's a large need there. So we do table across the community at various fairs and various events, and we pass out all the informative child safety literature that we have at our fingertips from Prevent Child Abuse Indiana. So that's an example there of I think that was at a St. Luke's back to school fair one year. And we're always looking for folks to help us out with that. So we do other random events too throughout the year. So we tomorrow actually we're honoring a group of mothers. We bought a table at the Phenomena Mom event, which is an annual event from Uplift Your Sister that celebrates you know, how awesome and amazing moms are with a really beautiful, wonderful lunch. We have partnered with Prevent Child Abuse Indiana to host their regional meetings and help them host various trainings, and they put on various programs like films and speaker panels and things like that. So yeah, so that's other things that we can do. We're still kind of like fine-tuning what it is that we are, and kind of building that ship as we go, so to speak. The only other thing I don't think I covered that's in your folder is the Stewards of Children flyer. So I'll do a quick plug of that for myself. It's Stewards of Children is from the creator of Darkness to Light out of South Carolina. It's a 2-hour training. We highly encourage, we're not making it mandatory, but we strongly encourage all STARS members to go through that training. Because it is really impactful, it's really eye-opening, and it builds a lot of knowledge around how to prevent and how to spread the awareness of child sexual abuse. But there's so many correlating prevention knowledge building around going through that training that can transcend just child sexual abuse, but child abuse in general. So I put that training on. I'm always happy to bring that training to various programs, so talk to me more about that. But we do strongly encourage all of our members to go through that, and you've got that flyer in your folder. So that is everything. Hopefully you found this information to be very helpful. I'm going to be following up with this video with a questionnaire for you just to answer some, give me some general feedback. But as a reminder, you need to fill out the the DCS background check form and the, I don't want to tell you wrong, the council member checklist. I need that back from you too. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions. But that is it. So I thank you so much for taking the time to go through our orientation today.